Welcome. I look like the Godfather. Yes? Oh, thank you. Hello. Welcome to my new filming space. I am moving, as you all know, and my room is packed up. I am now staying in the guest room for about a week more, and then it's goodbye to my hometown that I have lived in for 23 years, and I'm moving across country. Anyway, today I'm going to do a July wrap-up video. So I set a lot of goals for myself for July. I wanted to read a lot of books, and I actually did. Now, it's nowhere near the people who read 30 books a month, and I did cheat in some ways, but Mama read all that she set out to read. The only difference is, in my July TBR, I said I was going to read The Poppy Wars. I am going to read that in August because I actually want to finish the Divabod trilogy.
I think it's called. Is it the trilogy or is it?
I wanted to read City of Brass, and then I finished City of Brass, and I want to finish Kingdom of Copper and Empire of Gold before I start the Poppy Wars. Hello. I also had to pack up my Avatar comics, so I said I was going to read The Search, Imbalance, and North and South, but actually I traded those for other graphic novels, so those will also be in my August TBR. However, I did replace them with other graphic novels that were about the same length. So, very proud of myself. So to start, I am going to do non-spoilers. So these are all non-spoiler reviews. I'll give you a little synopsis and then basically what I thought about the book and my rating, what I rated it. I want to start by saying these are obviously subjective reviews. I am not in any way an English major. I am going to grad school for theater. Books are meant to be impactful to different people at different times in different points in their life. I firmly believe that books I think are god-awful are amazing and super impactful to other people. So take what I say with a grain of salt. This is just what I experienced, all of that. Also, I'm looking at myself in my phone a lot because I'm filming on my phone, which is new for me. Usually I don't see myself when I'm filming because my camera is packed up and headed across the country, yo. So you get an iPhone video today. We love good quality in this house. Yes? Okay. The first book/books I'm going to talk about is the Mistborn series. I already made a video on the Mistborn trilogy and my thoughts that were more spoiler based. So I'm gonna go ahead and give a quick non-spoiler review. So the first book, The Final Empire, focuses on a young girl named Vin and a former slave called Kelsier and their plot to overthrow the government. There is a man called the Lord Ruler. He is believed to be a god and immortal, and you find out that there are reasons for this, but he's unjust. There are the Ska, who are less than the nobles, according to the Lord Ruler, and they are mistreated, so Kelsier helps lead a Ska rebellion against the Lord Ruler in order to overthrow him. In this world, we learn about allomancy, which is the use of metals to enhance natural abilities that certain nobles and Skas have, such as pushing and pulling, which is where you push or pull against a metal And this is seen as what I like to call hardcore parkour, where they're just flying, they're popping pennies and copper on the floor and boosting over things. There's metals that enhance, like tin, which enhance your senses. So you can hear super far, you can feel and touch everything, you can see super far. Did I say hear super far? Anyway, Brandon Sanderson, who is the author, does a far better job explaining allomancy because he created it. The world itself is stunning. It just is. He has a way of building this world without it being too complex. Like, it's a really complex world. However, he writes it in a way where you are immersed in it and completely understand. And that was my fear getting into this series, is that I wouldn't quite grasp the elemental magic and the world itself, mainly because I'm the kind of person, if I don't understand those things, then the story itself becomes too confusing and I just quit. I stop reading it. So Brandon Sanderson did an excellent job of making sure that everything was explained, but not just in a way where he tells you about it, but in a way where it's shown to you. I loved the characters. The characters were fantastic. Even the Lord Ruler, who was this horrible, horrible, horrible person, was someone you could kind of understand, and they all had their different motives for what they were doing. When you're finished with this series, I recommend going to watch my Mistborn tag, which is where I talk more about Mistborn trilogy, and you will see the videos of me sobbing. Yay! So yeah, all three of them were 5-star reads for me. The entire trilogy is a 5-star read for me. I'm really happy that I found it. And I'm really happy that I found Brandon Sanderson's writing. I think his writing is fantastic. And there's a reason why he's so popular. Next, I read This Is Kind of an Epic Love Story. So I gave this book a 3.5 out of 5 stars. The story follows a boy named Nathan Bird, who is referred to as Bird, and reconnecting to an old friend of his named Oliver, or Ollie, as they call him. And you learn that they had a crush on each other before Ollie moved away, and now Ollie has come back. However, Bird has changed a lot, and that is mainly due to his friend slash ex-girlfriend, Florence, or Flo. And why this book has such a low rating from me is because there were a lot of plot devices used that really just frustrated me and felt like it took away from the story. I really loved our two main characters, which was Bird and Ollie. I felt like they had an instant connection. The chemistry was there. It was so sweet and heartfelt. But there were other plot points that just really frustrated me. And then all of the other characters frustrated me, including characters that said they were friends to these lead characters. However, they didn't act like friends, and it was never really addressed how horrible their behavior was towards the lead characters. So I think it was still a very sweet, very fast read, which is why I gave it a 3.5 star. But I think there were some things that could have been changed. Storm Runner. Okay. To start, I gave it 3 stars. And at first I thought it was because maybe middle grade just wasn't for me. Maybe I was just one of those super judgmental readers who was like, wow, this is really, really young. Which obviously it should be. It's for middle grade. However, I've read a couple other middle grades since, and I had read a couple other middle grade before that were just better than this and didn't read so young. So the story itself is of a boy named Zane who accidentally lets out the god of death, the Mayan god of death, and sells his soul, basically, in order to release him because he thinks that he's going to save some people that he cares about. That's like the rough version of it. I had a really hard time caring about these characters. I wound up liking Zane about halfway through. It took me a second to really start to get into him and really like his character. But it wasn't because he was young. It was because of, I don't know, I felt like there was a disconnect from his character to the reader, and there wasn't that instant connection. I also just felt like some characters were kind of thrown in there for no real reason, including some main characters. Towards the middle to the end, it just felt like it was trying to be Percy Jackson. There was so much potential for it to go a different way and for it to be its own kind of narrative. I really would have loved to have seen more about him basically becoming a soldier of death, what it's called. It just fell flat. I had a lot of expectations and hopes going into it because I do love Mayan mythology. Oh my gosh. I love Mayan mythology. It's fascinating, and I was so excited for this book, and I think I just got my hopes up a little bit. So it wasn't my favorite. It wasn't awful, but it wasn't my favorite, and it took me quite a while to get through it. However, another Rick Riordan Presents book, because that was a Rick Riordan Presents book, another one that I read was Dragon Pearl. And this was a 4.5 star. This book was so good. I would recommend it to anyone who is trying to get into middle grade. The story follows Meme, who goes in search of her lost brother. Her brother joined this force of space cadets who were out to protect and help the world. However, they went rogue, and she has to figure out why they went rogue. So she goes and she leaves and she goes undercover to try and figure out what happened to her brother. And obviously chaos ensues, but this story was so original and the mythology was excellent. I mean, just so fascinating. And even though it was a really, really short book, I never felt like it was rushed. I never felt like anything was lacking. The characters were fantastic. I loved Meme. And the friendships were there. The chemistry between the friendships, and each character felt like they had a reason to be there and weren't just thrown in for extra plot craziness. If you like books that take place in space, or you like books that involve different types of mythology, I would highly recommend Dragon Pearl. It's a very quick read, but so enjoyable, and one I'm definitely going to keep for a very long time. Next, I read Let's Talk About Love, and this was a 5-star read for me. I cried. Now, this book involves asexual representation. I cannot actively tell you whether or not that representation is accurate. I have done my research, and there are multiple people who say that it is very accurate, and there are others who say that it is not. So as someone who is not asexual, I cannot at all tell you whether or not the representation was accurate to me. To me, this story was just stunning. It was amazing. It was incredibly cute. So incredibly cute. But the writing style itself was what I would describe as softly blunt. It was a very lyrical and rhythmic style of writing that was also incredibly blunt about how these characters were feeling. It follows Alice, who has just broken up with her girlfriend because her girlfriend doesn't feel they can connect and show love for each other the same way, because Alice is asexual and Margot, I think her name was, her ex-girlfriend was a highly sexual person. So Alice has sworn off love, but of course, immediately she meets a new person and they fall instantly in love. They become friends, and it's a great story about what happens when you become all consumed by someone and how do you manage that with other friendships. It was a really sweet and touching story. I loved it as a romance. I recommend it to anyone who wants to read it.
That's my opinion. Please.
Cinderella is Dead. This was my most anticipated read for July. I did not have it on my July TBR because I didn't know if I was going to get it. I didn't know if I was going to pre-order it, and then I saw the pre-order campaign was happening, and I was like, I gotta do it. And look, I got my pin, and she's so pretty. Oh, she's so pretty. So this is gonna go, I have a pin.
For my apartment, I have like a hanging wall thingy that you hang the pins on, and it's decoration.
So I saw the pre-order campaign was happening, and you know what? The concept seemed so cool to me. I just decided, I was like, why the heck not? I am buying this book. So I did. Oh my gosh, I'm so happy I did. I read it. It was such a fast read. And I think that's why I gave it 4.5 stars. And the reason it was not a full 5 stars, even though technically it was 5 stars in my heart, I can't decide. It was very, very fast paced. And my problem with that was I wanted so much. I just wanted this world that she created was fantastic. I'm not big into Cinderella stories or the retellings of classic Grimm fairy tales. I don't know why I've never been really into the retellings. I think because I am one of those people who really likes original work. But this retelling was original. I mean, it was stunning. So it takes place 200 years after Cinderella has passed away. The entire kingdom is required to know the Cinderella tradition by heart, and there is an annual ball when you reach the age of 16, and you have 2 years? 3 years. You have until you're 18 to be basically claimed by a man for marriage and to get betrothed. It involves a sapphic main character named Sophia, and I just loved her character, even though there were some moments where I was like,
Girl, you are so dumb right now. Calm down.
but it was just so incredible to see a book that obviously had so much passion behind it, and the story itself was incredibly original despite it being based on a classic fairy tale. The writing itself was enchanting. I loved it. I wanted this to be a trilogy. I really could see this book becoming a trilogy, and I think that's why I gave it, and I think that's unfair of me. I just wanted so much more. I thought there was so much more she could go into, and you could see that she kind of wanted to go into it, but couldn't. So I don't know. There was some open space for her to go through other fairy tales, not just Cinderella's story. And I'm hoping she does, because I really did like this book, and I highly recommend it. It's 4.5, 5 stars. I really did love it. Next was The Emperor's Soul, which is a short story by Brandon Sanderson. It is the prequel to his spin-off book called Elantris, which takes place in the Cosmere, which is the universe of Mistborn and the Stormlight Archive, which I'm getting to next. That's a big boy. The Way of Kings is a big boy. It's gonna take me a second to get through it. The Emperor's Soul focuses on a girl named Shay, who is a forager. Now, foragers are able to, the best way I can describe it is say like this picture frame behind me was broken. They are able to fix it and restore it by forging it and creating a seal and restoring it to what it once was or what it could have been. And that's kind of the only way I can explain it. It really is a difficult concept, but I think this short story really explains it well. And this short story got me really excited for Elantris. And basically what happens is Shay is a forager. She has been captured and she is given the option to either stay in jail and face the consequences or help forge the Emperor's soul. The Emperor has been in an accident. He has been revived. However, his soul is no longer what it once was, so he's kind of just an empty shell. So that's all I can say about that. It was honestly great from the beginning to the end. I didn't think that it rushed in any place. I didn't think it was too complex to understand. It's only about 130 pages. I recommend reading it. I don't think you need to have read any of Brandon Sanderson's other novels to read it, but it did get me really excited for Elantris. Now we get into one of the graphic novels that I read in place of one of the Avatar comics, and that is The Adventure Zone 3, Petals to the Metal. I love The Adventure Zone. I think it's a fantastic series. I've talked about the first two before, and this one was really different from the first two. The first two are kind of more silly, and they have a plot and they're obviously going somewhere, but they also really focus on the comedy and all of that. Petals to the Metal was so heartwarming.
And it made me cry. I was shocked that I teared up.
It's definitely my favorite of the three. But I think why I loved this one so much is that it also had an overarching theme, and that theme was learning how to love and also deal with loss along the way, and what it means to never give up on someone and to always be there for someone even in their darkest days. And I know it seems crazy coming from a Dungeons and Dragons based graphic novel, but it really was. It was incredibly sweet. I also really loved the color scheme of this graphic novel. Each of the graphic novels in the Adventure Zone has a different kind of color scheme. So the first one was kind of grays and browns. The second one was a lot of golds and blues. And this one was purple and pink. And I loved it. The art was stunning. The color scheme was fantastic. And the story itself was just so touching. And it was still funny, but it was also incredibly touching. The Hating Game. I made a whole vlog about how I feel about this book. I'm not going to get into it on here. It's 2 stars for me, folks. It follows these 2 co-workers, Joshua and Lucy, and they hate each other.
Even though you're not given really a reason why.
And of course, they fall in love. It was a buddy read with my friend Maya, and what I find fascinating is she had a completely different experience with the book than I did. She gave it 4 stars. I gave it 2, and I just love that. Like, I respect everyone's opinions on books, because, again, it touches people differently. I couldn't get past certain things, but, you know, we all read differently. Reading is subjective. So, yeah, 2 stars. If you want to know how I felt about it, go watch my vlog. It's pretty funny. So I did wind up reading an Avatar comic. I read Avatar: The Promise. I sucked it up and bought the ebook version. It was on sale, and the library edition of the other ones I have is out of print now. So We're just SOL on that, but it's okay because I got it in ebook. We're fine. So I read it and it was 4 stars. I think anything with Avatar: The Last Airbender will always be 4 stars or above with me. It was 4 stars because I did enjoy the story itself. I did like this idea of focusing on what happens now that they are trying to bring peace. Because it's not just as simple as saying we're going to bring peace to the land after defeating the Fire Lord. What I think didn't make it a 5-star for me was the writing felt discombobulated and felt very different from the show. It almost felt like they were really trying to emulate the show. I just didn't love it. I liked it a lot. I just didn't think it was the greatest. Now I've heard the next one in the series is, so I'm really excited to get to that. That will be in my August TBR. Next, The Prince and the Dressmaker. This was 5 stars for me. This is another graphic novel that went ahead and replaced one of the Avatar comics for me. I was touched by this one, and I'm going to get emotional talking about it. It involves a dressmaker who wants to get into the fashion world, and there's this prince from Belgium who is visiting, and he recruits her to make him dresses because he feels most comfortable in dresses and a wig. And this side of him is known as Lady Crystalia. I think what made this graphic novel so touching was, oh my God, I'm gonna get emotional. It's the kind of story that I think a lot of the LGBT community needs, where we have a character that is loved and accepted for who they are. And the parents accept him. Francis accepts him, who's the dressmaker. And it's just about being honest and true to yourself. And I know it's kind of a fantasy to think that everyone will be okay when you're acting as yourself, but it just was something that I know for a fact will impact so many young boys and girls if they read it growing up. And yeah, it was just a stunning piece about friendship and love and what it means to truly love someone for who they are, not just for what you want them to be. So I highly recommend it. It was on sale. It's $2.99 on Nook and Kindle. And I recommend that you read it. It's a fast read. It made me cry. The art is so sweet, but also simple. And I think the art is simple because it focuses a lot on the fashion itself. And yeah, I really liked it. Finally, City of Brass. So it took me a while to get to this one. I'm sorry, folks. I'm so happy I got to this book, though. I love mythology. I've talked about it before. I love learning about other cultures. And learning the Islamic mythology through this book was just, I loved it, and I love the characters. Now, this book is obviously a setup for the 2nd and 3rd book. However, I didn't mind it. I was never once bored. I didn't think that there was a lack of action. If anything, the last 50 pages,
Holy crap.
the last 50 pages was a lot emotionally. I finished it last night and started Kingdom of Copper right away. So I'm hoping actually to finish Kingdom of Copper by the end of July. I am ready to plow through the series. Anyway, it's a fantastic story. I see why it gets all the hype. The writing is stunning and yet so simple in the sense of it's very easy to understand. You just connect with the characters, and I'm still in awe to the point where I have no idea how to describe what I'm feeling. It was a great book. I'm really excited to finish the whole series. I've heard my soul is gonna be ripped from my body once more, so yeah. All right, next time you see me, I may be in my apartment. Anyway, thank you for watching. I love you all.